Imperialism is the domination of a country over another country's political, cultural, and/or economical life. Europe had an ever so slight influence on China, India, and Africa. The European economics boosted after the Industrial Revolution. Imperialism involved economic interests. The Industrial Revolution created needs and desires that transported overseas. Manufacturers wanted to work with natural resources. New markets were made to sell factory goods. The British Empire was a rather strong one. Its builder was Lord Frederick Lugard. Social Darwinism played a huge role in imperialism. This caused the growth of racial superiority in the West. Many Westerners followed social Darwinism. Social Darwinism relates to imperialism by its survival of the fittest principle.
Linked economic motives were political and military issues. There had been steam-powered merchant ships and naval bases around the world. Nationalism was a very key role in France's rival nations such as Britain and Germany, who had seized land nearby to halt further French expansion. Missionaries, doctors, and colonial officers believed they had a duty to spread what they saw worldwide, which were humanitarian goals.
1870 to 1914, imperialist nations gained control over much of the world. In Europe, imperialism was something that all classes could agree on. During imperialism, there were a lot of weaknesses for non-Western states. Older civilizations declined, such as the Ottoman Middle East, the Mughal India, and King China. In Western Africa, wars and their effect on the slave trade were bringing down empires, kingdoms, and city-states. Newer African states were not strong enough to defend against the Western expansion.
Europeans had advantages of strong economies, very well-organized governments, and powerful armies and navies. Medical knowledge was also drastically improved thanks to superior technology. These new medicines helped Europeans survive deadly tropical diseases. Technologies such as Maxim machine guns, repeating rifles, and steam-driven warships also played a large part in persuading Africans and Asians to accept Western control. Even with all of these persuading technological advancements, the Africans and Asians still strongly resisted Western expansion into their lands. Some people fought the invaders, although they had no weapons equal to the Maxim gun. Later, Western educated African and Asians organized nationalist movements to expel the imperialists from their lands. Small groups in West opposed imperialism and said colonialism was a tool of the rich.
The new imperialism took multiple forms. Some places practiced protectorates, and others practiced spheres of influence. Currently, France and Britain were leaders of imperial power, and they created different kinds of colonial rule. The French practiced direct rule, in which they sent officials and soldiers from their home country and to order the colonies. They wanted to turn the colonies into French provinces, and in order to do that, they must impose French culture. Britain, on the other hand, used a system of indirect rule in which they used sultans, chiefs, or other local rulers. They encouraged the local children to learn about Britain so that they could breed a new Western gen of leaders to continue the rule of colonies. Britain would still occasionally resort to using military force if the situation demanded it. In something called a protectorate, local leaders were left in place but were still expected to follow the advice of advisors from Europe. These cost less to run than a colony and didn't require too much military. In a sphere of influence, an area where an outside power took exclusive investment or trading privileges, Europeans carried these spheres in China and other places to prevent conflict among themselves.